The prop perspective with the jack of all trades. How we start each and every week live on a Monday morning on the early line on SportsGrid. That is TV Tom Vecchio of SportsGrid, here to get you set with all the changes we are seeing around the NBA past the midway point of this season in front of a 10-game slate in the association on this Monday night. And of course, Tom, how we all kind of change our evaluations now for the Los Angeles Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks. Thanks so much for being here bright and early on this Monday.
Of course, as usual, thanks for having me. There's a ton to get to across not just the NBA tonight for tonight's games, but obviously the landscape of the teams moving forward, what we're going to see from them. We can touch on the Super Bowl a little bit. Let's get to it.
And we will touch on the Super Bowl. Vecchio has already been here twice in the week before Super Bowl week to look at the prop markets. We'll get his thoughts on where he sees things right now, officially on the Monday of Super Bowl week, ahead of the biggest Sunday of each and every NFL season, 6 days away. But the first Sunday without an actual NFL football game, Vecchio, for the first time since early September, was yesterday. And in the first 12 minutes of Sunday, a blockbuster trade that left everybody stunned and shocked. Luca Doncic traded by the Mavericks to the Lakers. In return, the Mavs get back Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a first-round selection. And as Joe has highlighted, do not forget the Utah Jazz. Jalen Hood-Schifino makes his way to Salt Lake in those two second-round selections. Vecchio, I think it's fair to say everybody was shocked by this news. Wherever you have been early in the Sunday morning hours, or perhaps when everybody woke up on Sunday morning. But now that we've had a little bit more than 24 hours to settle and react, have you been able to wrap your mind around why this deal was done?
Oh, so I was on In-Game Live last night with Joe Madden and Scott Wenzel, and we were talking about this just kind of briefly about the same sorts of things. And I think this is a play for the Lakers moving forward over the next set of years, 5-10 years. LeBron's going to retire 2-3 years, whatever it might be. They can build around Luka. And, maybe the Mavericks got some indication from Luka that he wasn't going to re-sign in 2 or 3 years whenever he's up. And he's up for a supermax at that point. So that is a massive, massive investment in the team. And obviously, with the ownership changing, whatever they want to do, like there's parts of this that we don't know and we may never know. So good for the Lakers. They have this player that they can build around for the next decade. Ultimately, we're not trying to bring this down. It's like, what can we actually get from this? Obviously, I expect LeBron to take let's say half a step back. And as I said last night to Joe and Scott, I'm interested in LeBron assist props moving forward. How does the offense get to meld together once Luka's back and fully involved? Does LeBron look to play more of a facilitator role rather than a pure scorer role? And then we can get some value from the assist market rather than his points.
So where do we look, Anthony Davis, once he gets back to Dallas? Obviously, I guess they think defense wins championships. He doesn't have to be a center, which is good news. But whose team offensively is it moving forward here, Tom, at this point, the Dallas Mavericks?
It's going to be, Kyrie and AD and a 1A, 1B who's ever got the hot hand. And I think that can make it very difficult to decide who has the best prop tonight, who we're going to be trusting, because there are going to be games where AD goes 30 and 15 and Kyrie may have 20 and 12, where he flies over his assist prop, but he falls well short of his points just because someone else has the hot hand, and maybe the spacing opens up time for Klay Thompson to get more involved, who's had a bit of an up and down year. So it's actually going to be very difficult, I think, from the Mavs perspective. Once we have a decent enough sample size, I think that's what will give it. Right from the jump, you could either be very right or very wrong, but that does open up the opportunity for value for some of their secondary or tertiary role players. Maybe Gafford steps up in terms of rebound. He's not doing as much scoring, et cetera, et cetera.
The Mavericks have moved back in terms of their price to win the Western Conference, nearly doubling that number, 10-1, now 19-1. The Lakers' price to win the West, 25-1 entering this weekend, now plus 850, third best number behind OKC and Denver. Tom, this was a blockbuster trade that nobody saw coming. Another blockbuster deal last night that perhaps was more expected. De'Aaron Fox traded to San Antonio. Zach LaVine, a part of a 3-team deal that included Chicago, makes his way to California's capital. The Bulls get a crop of players and a first-round pick. But it does bear repeating because this is NBA trade deadline week. as well as Super Bowl week. Trade deadline is Thursday afternoon around the association. So note these numbers to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy right now. The Celtics, the reigning champs, and the title favorites all year, still in that position, but OKC making up ground quick. The Lakers were 40-1 entering the weekend, now 19-1. So, Vecchio, of course, we put a pin in where these odds are at the moment, but we also ask you a question. Where do you think the best value is right now in terms of the NBA championship odds board?
It's a team, and it's not on that list. And let's turn to the Houston Rockets at 40-1. And I'm not saying I think the Rockets are the best team in the league, because they aren't. But, Ben, we can look back a couple years when you had a Sacramento Kings ticket, if you remember that. And the Rockets are in third right now in the West, right? And whether they end up third, second, fourth, wherever it might be, they're in a spot to host a first-round game. And at 40-1 to win the NBA championship, and at 17-1, which is six on the board to win the West, this is a spot where you can get them at an awesome price, and then they will host that first-round matchup. They can win that first-round matchup, and then you're working with a lot of leg room in terms of, do you want to cash out, hedge in that second round? So I don't think the Rockets are the best team. I want to make that clear. I think Oklahoma City, Denver are much better than them, obviously, the Celtics on the other side, and the Cavs. But we will have a ticket that is awesome to have, because some of these teams are essentially going to cannibalize each other. The Grizzlies, the Clippers, and the Lakers are all not going to make it into the second round. And having the Rockets as a home court team in the first round will be the spot to have.
All right, so let's talk about some of these games here tonight, some of the props that you might be looking at here. Give us one, because I see that you're going with my favorite guy, former Oklahoma State player there, who should be MVP, but I said it out loud. There you go. What are you thinking tonight, Tom?
We have a ton of games to get to tonight, so let's turn to Cade Cunningham. And his points prop is sitting at 27.5, and it's sitting at minus 106. If we look at the entire points props for all the players in this game, Cade Cunningham is the highest. Instead of betting on his points prop, which you can certainly do at 27.5, obviously, like I said, he's been awesome this year. He's piling up the shots. He have a all-star nod for him this year. Let's turn to him to be the highest point scorer, which is sitting at plus 105, which is essentially what his points prop at 27.5 indicates, is that he has the highest points prop. And if he's going to hit the over on that, there's like a scenario where he's obviously the highest point scorer. So let's shoot for a little bit of plus money. It's not like some massive number. It's only plus 105. I understand that, but that's what the points prop is indicating. Now, you could play both. You could play like a normal unit on the 27.5, a little bit, maybe a half unit, a quarter unit on the plus 105. There are ways to get value when we're essentially getting the same outcome from Cade Cunningham. Now, there is also a scenario where he's the highest point scorer and he still hits the under on his points drop. I don't see that happening versus Atlanta. I think Cade Cunningham's going to drop 30, 35 points tonight, but I want to shoot for that plus money.
And Vecchio, you mentioned the Houston Rockets, third best record now in the Western Conference, slightly behind Memphis from that perspective. They suffered a weird defeat the other day in Brooklyn, but now they head to Madison Square Garden tonight to take on the team with the third best record out east. That would be the Knicks. I will be there. My first ever Knicks game attended inside MSG. So, Vecchio, I'm going to need to play for this game. What is it?
Yeah, let's turn to AnthonyTowns, and it's got to be under 13.5 rebounds. It's got a little bit of juice at minus 136. A lot of people are saying he's mean for a bounce-back spot after a dud of a game the other night versus the Lakers, but this number is just too high. And looking back at this game, we see these games with 15, 16, 20 rebounds earlier in January, but it's just a bit too much. He's consistently getting into foul trouble, and the Rockets are a really solid rebounding team. So, yeah, he can have a bounce-back game going for 30 and 10, but him having 30 and 15 is just a little bit too much for me. And then also turning to Keegan Murray, over 12.5 points. I think there's obviously some opportunity in the Kings with Fox leaving. Who's going to step up and take that role? And we know that Murray has been a very solid shooter, especially from deep. When he started his career, a little bit lower this year, but I do expect him to play a bigger role on offense moving forward.
The jack of all trades, believe me, we'll have Super Bowl props later in the week for everybody to hammer down into. Tom Vecchio, thank you. More around the association next. We welcome you back to the early line, a 10-game slate around the association on this Monday, following a very dramatic and seismic shifting weekend in the association. Luca Doncic is now a Los Angeles Laker. Anthony Davis makes his way to Dallas. De'Aaron Fox now with the Spurs. Zach LaVine in California's capital with the Kings. The Jazz got involved, as did the Chicago Bulls. But let's get to all the games we have tonight on a Monday. As I just shared with Tom Vecchio, I've been to Madison Square Garden, Joe. Not all that far away from us here in Midtown Manhattan many times in my life. Big East tournaments, Rangers games, concerts, other college basketball affairs. I have never actually been to a Knicks game. That changes tonight. The New York Knicks, third best team in the Eastern Conference. The Houston Rockets, as of this moment, after a weird home loss as a 12.5-point favorite over the weekend against the Nets, third best record in the Western Conference. And it's going to be a great matchup tonight in MSG. Joe, how do you see this game playing out? Note, again, I will be in attendance.
Yeah, and it's all about who's playing in this game, Ben. We are keeping an eye on Anunoby, who left that game early, unfortunately, there, which is not good. We know Josh Hart also still questionable because of his right knee soreness. So we got to keep an eye on who's playing for them. And Houston, Houston, Albert Sengun has been missing the last couple of games and hasn't gone well for them. Van Fleet also still questionable. I would imagine Madison Square Garden has a pretty good healing power, Ben, in prime time, where sometimes these guys miraculously rub some dirt on it and get back in there. I think the total is correlated to who you think is going to win this game tonight, Ben. If you like Houston, I'm backing the under. If you like the New York Knicks, we're probably going to get a bit of a shootout here tonight.
Which is really interesting, Joe. And the line has worked up to 6.5 in favor of the Knickerbockers, by the way. You would think Tom Thibodeau, his teams grinded out on the defensive side of the floor. The Knicks last week had 2 consecutive games scoring at least 140 points. In the totals for New York as of late have been a lot closer to 240 than 220, where we see that number tonight, 223 and a half. Really good matchups up and down the docket, including a team in Sacramento that looks a little bit different now. The Kings make a road trip to the Twin Cities to take on the Timberwolves. Not sure we're going to see Zach LaVine make his debut tonight. If we get confirmation that happens, we will let you know. Minnesota, who lost to Dallas in last year's Western Conference Finals, probably looking around like, oh boy, Western Conference looks a little bit different on this Monday morning, approaching trade deadline week. Let's make a run. T-Wolves 4.5-point home favorite, Joe.
Yeah, and this is the final game of a 6-game road trip here for Sacramento, who's going to look a little bit different now with the trade of Fox here. Both of these teams are looking to finish. Certainly, the Kings are looking to finish this on a high note this trip. They've lost 4 of the first 5 games on the trip. It has not been a good run for them at all. We did see Minnesota finally turn a corner, certainly offensively as of late, but they too coming off a loss here. So to me, the edge is with Minnesota in this one here. Never liked these teams on that last leg of a long road trip. And now all of a sudden, one of your players and leaders is no longer there. Tough spot for Sacramento.
Precarious season for Sacramento. They fired Mike Brown, got off to a hot start with Doug Christie, but then De'Aaron Fox, a staple of the franchise the last 8 seasons, is now no longer there. Going to San Antonio to play with Victor Wembanyama. We'll see what spark Zach LaVine provides when he makes his Kings debut. The T-Wolves have been booked as a favorite often, 38 of 49 games this year, 27 and 22 overall, just 22 and 16 outright as a favorite. That's not all that great. 13 and 25 against the spread. They lay 4.5 tonight. We are calling it a finals preview ? But is it really? Oklahoma City, 11.5-point favorite at home tonight, that being the Thunder hosting the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks on a 3-game slide. OKC, the best team in the Western Conference. 232.5 is that total listed right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. What's the play tonight, Joe, in OKC?
I don't know how you. I mean, as long as they're not playing Memphis, I guess maybe the Bucks are live getting points here, but they can't seem to beat the Memphis team at all. As they lost again, I think they've lost now the last 8 times that they've played them. Second of a back-to-back, tough spot here for Milwaukee, and quite honestly, they're starting to look a little old and slower. Ben, watching them, we saw what Memphis did to him in the second half yesterday, and it just looked like they left him in the dust. OKC more than capable of doing exactly the same thing here. Plus, who's playing, who's not playing on the second of a back-to-back from Milwaukee right now.
4-game road trip for Milwaukee. Returned home last night to take on Memphis. As a home favorite, they got beat by the Grizz and gave up a ton of points. In fact, Joe, this week has been awful for the Bucks on this 3-game slide. Dame's second return to Portland. They get beat by the Blazers as a double-digit favorite. They get beat by the Spurs in Wemby in a big way on Friday night, and of course losing to the Grizzlies last night. Change of venue, second leg of a back-to-back, and you're going up against the Western Conference's best team in OKC, 27-16-3 against the spread this year as a favorite, and maybe some revenge for the Thunder, I should say, in a rematch of the NBA Cup title game. Elsewhere, Joe, in the association, again, plenty of action. Let's head to San Francisco. One of our final games of the night, the Warriors and the Magic. 3-point favorite for Golden State. 212 and a hook is the total. What's the play out by the Bay?
Yeah, well, you're thinking it's the Magic, and it probably should be looking at an under here, and that's the way I'm going to look here, simply because, listen, the Warriors, they need a win. And the Magic feel like they've been on the road forever, so I don't trust them offensively. I think it's a dead under here tonight, this one.
Right now, the Orlando Magic, in their last 9 games, have only scored more than 100 twice. They've gone under, of course, in 5 of the last 7 as well.